Well, good morning, friends. Happy Mother's Day. We've got your Sunday morning spread from Cards of Light, Bright Blessings of the Tarot. May 8th, 2022. Brian Noe with you again. Happy to be here to share a four-card energy reading with you. And I wanted to talk a little bit again at the top this time about the scriptures and the tarot. I had on Three Card Thursday mentioned that there was a post up on the weblog about this topic. But I realized after that video aired that I really hadn't, within it, talked about the blog post very much. I talked about the circumstances that made it come up, but I didn't really unpack it. So I wanted to just briefly discuss that today. So, as I mentioned Thursday, a friend of mine on Facebook had quoted some scripture to me saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be playing with tarot cards." And the scriptures were from the Book of Leviticus. And if you look at that book in the Bible, there are prohibitions against all kinds of things. You can't wear blended clothing, fabrics. You can't eat animal fat. You can't glean to the edges of your fields. You can't harvest fruit from the ground. Those sorts of things. All of these, prohibitions against eating shellfish, that kind of stuff. There's also the Israelites must have been kind of randy folks because there's all kinds of sexual prohibitions. You can't sleep with your aunt. You can't sleep with a woman and with her daughter or granddaughter. And if you marry both of them, you should all be executed. I mean, there's just some really interesting stuff in that book. But what happens is people cherry pick. They tend to interpret these scriptures based on either what they have already been taught or what the conclusion they want to arrive at with them. So they'll say, "Oh, well, of course it's okay. We aren't bound by that rule about not eating shrimp. But this rule, we are bound by." And so there's some discernment going on there, even for people that just say, "Nope, the Bible, this is what it says in the Bible, this is what we have to do." Most of the time they're not obeying all of those rules. And yet there are certain rules that they say, "Oh, well, yeah, well, there's other context here. We need to take this in context." And yeah, even though there are some of these things we can ignore, there are some that we can't. And that is okay if that's the way people want to interpret things. And I think we all do that. But my point is we should be doing that. We should be looking at the context, looking at who these words were originally aimed at, the context of the times and all of that. And not just say, "Oh, well, the Bible says." I grew up in a Protestant Christian tradition whose slogan was, "Where the Bible speaks, we speak, and where the Bible's silent, we're silent." Okay, good principle, I suppose. And yet they did all sorts of interpretation and discernment as well. As a Catholic Christian, we are taught that it is the Catholic Church that has the authority to interpret scriptures. And that is fine too. If someone is trying to abide by the teachings of their own faith, I have no problem with that at all. But I think that we have these minds for a reason. We're supposed to be paying attention, taking things serious, and using them to arrive at decisions that make sense for us in our lives and the way that we want to live. So I think that's about it on this topic. I'd love to hear what you think, though. If you disagree with any of this or you have anything to add to it, please jump in either here or on the weblog. And let's go to the table now for our 4-card Sunday morning spread. We have 2 pip cards, a major and a court card this week. We've got the Ace of Cups in the physical dimension. We've got Fortune in the social emotional. We've got the 9 of Wands in the physical and the Prince of Discs in the spiritual dimension of our lives this week. So let's take these one at a time. Ace of Cups is the source of love, the source of emotion. These aces are not just the first card in the series of each suit, but they are sort of the impulse or the thought or the first urge behind the expression of the suit. Cups being the suit of the heart, the suit of emotions, the suit of relationships. This ace is very, very special. And I think of it as that first impulse to love, the first impulse to share, the first impulse to connect with others. The very first one, just that initial, before you act on it, before you love someone, that impulse, that feeling and that drive to love others and to be loved. So I think coming as it does here in the physical dimension, this is a cue in the coming week that our physical well-being, our financial well-being, any well-being that has to do with the material realm is really rooted in that impulse to love, and that we should get in touch with that impulse, and that we should follow it on through to what sorts of actions we can take in our life, what sorts of things we can do to be more loving, and to connect with others, and that all of that is going to be beneficial to us in the physical dimension of our lives. So that's the way I would read that one. Okay, Fortune here in the social emotional. This card is about cycles and about change, and about things being constantly moving. We go up, we go down. And so coming as it does here in the social emotional dimension, that tells me that we need to remember that things are cyclical. Sometimes we're going to be feeling okay, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're going to relate well with others, sometimes we're not. And that we just need to persevere. We need to realize that if we're on a down sort of cycle here, it's gonna cycle back up. Things will get better. So if we're facing challenges this week, either with our emotions or with our connections to others, remember that the story doesn't end there. Usually when this card turns up too, there's a tradition that says that it is a harbinger of an up cycle. So that it's not just a reminder that things are cyclical and what goes up must come down, but that maybe we're headed into the upside of things. So maybe look for that this week, and I'd love to know if that turns out to be the case with you. Okay, the mental dimension. We have the 9 of Wands. And this card is also about perseverance. Crowley styles it strength. I think of it as we're still here. We are through everything that has happened, and particularly during this pandemic, the past couple of years here. We're still here. We're still strong, and we may not always feel that, but here we are to face another day. And so, in the mental dimension of our lives, I think that this calls for us to take take comfort in our strength, our resilience, in our ability to battle back when things happen that are maybe unpleasant or difficult. Hang in there. That's the message of this card in the mental dimension. And since energy goes where attention is placed, maybe spend some time meditating on our own strength this week, our own agency, the things that we know we're able to accomplish if we just hang in there. Particularly for people who are struggling with some of the stuff that has been going on here in the United States politically this last week. I think everybody just feels defeated and beleaguered. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. Hang on to that notion that we are stronger than we feel sometimes. And also, there is strength in pulling together. And so let's help each other, let's comfort each other through the difficult times, whenever they come. Okay. Spiritual dimension, Prince of Discs. This is the card of practical ingenuity. This character is going about doing work, solving problems, sometimes doing that in a very creative way. I think of this as the card of the inventor. And so coming as it does here in the spiritual dimension, I think that is telling us to do the work and to not be afraid to use some ingenuity in our spiritual lives. Experiment a little bit, see what works. I'm always kind of tweaking my daily spiritual practices. There are always certain things that happen every day. I meditate every day. I spend time with the Office of Readings, which is the formal daily prayers for Catholics, that and Vespers every day without fail. I've been doing some Green Tara Sadhana lately, which is a Buddhist, Vajrayana Buddhist practice. But that has changed over time. Every now and then on another weblog that I keep, I'll link out to it. I will do a post about kind of my current daily practices. But the point is here that in the spiritual dimension of our lives, which doesn't just mean religious activities or practices or beliefs or whatever, it is talking really about the stuff that brings meaning to our lives, making sense of things, recognizing that we are more than just our physical presence, that we are more than just our bodies. First of all, do some experimentation, try some new approaches or new things, but also do the work day after day after day. And that is what eventually leads us to progress. So really interesting spread here. These two cards kind of saying, hey, hang in there. This card saying, get in touch with the love that is deep within us and deep within others. And this one saying, day in and day out, even if it seems plodding at times, do the work. That's the way I would look at these. And I would love to hear your thoughts on them. If you are a reader and would read these differently than I have, I'd love to hear that. If somehow or another these are resonating with you in your life, I would love to hear from you as well. You can either leave comments here with the video or pop on out to the weblog at brightblessingstarot.com and let me know what you think. Good to be with you again. Again, happy Mother's Day. I hope everyone is enjoying their day. I hope this finds you happy and healthy and safe. Be back on Thursday for 3 Card Thursday. And in the meantime, take care of yourself. Thanks for joining me this morning.